All right, Jody, I think we can probably get going.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for being here today, everybody. My name is Jody Walder. This meeting is being interpreted in Spanish as a courtesy. Our interpreter will repeat this message in Spanish. When I enable interpretation, please select the globe icon on your Zoom screen and choose the language you'd like to hear in the meeting.
Thank you, Jody. Hi, everybody. I am your interpreter. I'll be interpreting this in Spanish. Esta reunión se interpretará al español. En un momento activaremos la función de interpretación y aparecerá un globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su pantalla de Zoom. Favor de hacer clic en ese icono y elija el idioma de su corazón, sea el inglés o el español. Ya podemos comenzar. Jody, we can go ahead and activate that interpretation now. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, you should see the globe and choose the language that you'd like to hear. All right, let me share my screen here real quick. All right, does everybody see that okay? All right.
Yep.
Well, welcome. Today we're going to be reviewing the statement of work, but we're also going to be reviewing our how to register as a vendor with the state, which is a very important first task to complete in order to get reimbursed for your grant. So my name is Jody Walder. I am the RFSI program coordinator. I've worked with a few of you, I believe, on the farm to market grants. And Brian, I'd like to introduce Brian. Brian, you want to introduce yourself, I guess you would say? Well, you're on mute.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Brian Copham, the program manager for the Resilient Food System Infrastructure Grant. And I know I've worked with most of you. There's a couple of people here that are new to me because you're part of the organization that is granted, soon to be granted, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, if it's okay, I'm hoping that we can start to build a little RFSI community here by it making you available to others so you can learn from each other if you have questions, at least if nothing else, know that you're not alone in this process. So if you wouldn't mind, for those who can, I know Beth is on the road, so I'm not going to ask Beth to do it, but if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, just real quick, name and company, something like that for everybody on the call, that would be wonderful. And I'll go around. So why don't we start with Matt?
Hello, am I off mute now?
You are, yes.
Um, Matt Springer. I'm in Paonia out here on the Western Slope. This is just brief introduction here.
Yes.
Yes.
And I am my farm is Gray Owl Garden. We grow culinary herbs, medicinal herbs, some amount of produce. Yeah, and just looking to continue growing, and especially being able to serve other people with processing and handling and distribution. Thanks.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you, Matt. And Maddie, I saw you were already on the button, so let's go with you.
Yeah, Matt sounds like Maddie, so I was ready on to unmute. Hi everyone, I'm Maddie Chera. I work for the wholesale distributor What Chefs Want. So we're a partner on one of the projects, and I'm with the local food connection program within the company. I'm actually a local food specialist focused on grants and partnerships, so this is very much my area things I like to do. But I'm kind of here to be a support to our main partner on the project, which is we're trying to build out some infrastructure in the Denver area for produce processing so that we can get more fresh fruits and vegetables out to customers like schools and other institutions that need, cut, diced, processed, and packaged produce. So that's, I'm here to kind of help and support on all the grant related aspects.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maddie.
Mm.
Twyla, how about you?
Yep, I can go. Rita Henley and I are both with Grouse
Yep.
Malt House. I am the founder. Grouse is a dedicated gluten-free malt house located in Wellington, Colorado. We specialize in making malt and roast products, utilizing Colorado's primarily dry land crops, millet, and buckwheat. And we're really excited to be expanding that into the gluten-free flour industry with this grant.
Awesome. Thank you, Twyla. And Rita, I know that you're in a support role, but feel free to introduce yourself if you'd like.
Yes, I'm Rita Henley, and I'm the controller for Grouse. So I really am just on here to support Twyla in whatever needs she has for reporting purposes.
Excellent. Thank you, Rita. Chris?
Hey, good morning. My name is Chris Sullivan. I run Mountain Oven Bakery and Millhouse in Paonia. We are an organic sourdough bakery and also a grain processing facility. Our RFSI project is focused in our grain processing work, helping to support infrastructural installation primarily of some specialized storage, cleaning, and material handling equipment for kind of as local as we can source, as close as the North Fork Valley, as far as the rest of the state of Colorado, for grain processing primarily. We're on the glutinous side of the grain processing world. So a lot of different wheats, rye, barley, oats, etc.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. And are you part of the grain chain? Are you a member of the grain chain or involved?
We are a member of the Colorado Grain Chain, yes.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. And Beth, like I said, since you're driving, we won't ask you to manipulate the phone, but happy to have you introduce yourself when you get into the office. Okay. Thank you very much. And Jody, back to you.
Okay. So the purpose of this information session is to make sure your onboarding process goes as smoothly as possible and to help make sure there's no surprises later on related to your contract. So today I'm going to be reviewing options for registering as a vendor with the state. And then Brian's going to review your contract structure and associated tables, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end. So, as I said before, the first step in this whole process is registering for a state vendor code. Just as an aside here, if you already have a state vendor code, you can just kind of listen in, no actions needed here. But if you're new to working with the state, you will need to register. And you must register because you cannot be reimbursed unless you have a vendor code. Let me admit someone really quick. Okay. So there's two ways. Oh, wait, let me tell this. Okay, so the vendor code is a number that the state accounting system will assign to you. And it will be, once you receive your contract will also have a number. And it's kind of like a little, the numbers will go together, and that's how we will access your grant funds. So that's why it's important to sign up. Okay, so the question is, how do I register? There are two ways to register. The first way is through vendor self-service, and that's the option that I recommend. It's quick. You get your vendor number right away. The second option is to email me a W-9, and that's a little bit slower of an option. There's always some back and forth with the W-9 unless you're really an expert of filling it out, and then it takes 5 to 10 days from that point to get your vendor code. So I recommend the first option. So preparing to sign up for the vendor code, you'll need some paperwork, or you'll need to know this information. You'll need your taxpayer identification number or your social security number. Make sure you register with your business name that's registered with the IRS. So if it's Bob's Grain and Mill, you don't want to just put Bob's Bread Shop because it won't coincide. And keep in mind that you should be registered with the Secretary of State and be in good standing. And also know your business organization. I think that's called the 1099. So are you a LCC? Are you a corporation? Are you a nonprofit? So once you have that information, you will access the vendor self-service website. And I'm going to go ahead and drop that email, or I'm sorry, that link in the chat real quick for you guys so you can, let's see. And then I'm going to take you through a demonstration. Okay. Any questions so far before I start? It's good. Okay. Just give me a second here and I will share a different screen. Okay. You guys all seeing that? Okay, cool. So I'm going to put that web address in there and we will go. This is the vendor self-service welcome page. So there's lots of little topics up here if you need support other than what I've shown you, and there's also some videos if you get lost, but it's a pretty straightforward process. So we are going to sign up for an account. The first thing you'll see is a memorandum. Read through it, and then either agree. I'm sure you'll accept the terms or reject them, but if you reject them, it'll just take you back to the site, but it's just pretty basic stuff. Here's some registration tips. This is the stuff you'll need. I kind of went over that already in a couple slides back. Something else that's important to know is your address. Think about where you want your payment sent, because that's whatever's put in here is where your payment will go. So we go next. Okay. User ID. So this is one you just create. It's not something that you have to have. So it's my user ID. Just fill out the fields. Anything with a red asterisk, something that will need to be filled out. Here's my own. And it'll tell you my password's pretty weak, but make sure yours is strong. Security question. Follow that, input your answer. And I need to guess what my favorite color is. Okay, and then your email. Okay. So, let's see, they are going to send you an email verification code. So you're going to sign up. Why did it not send it to me? Did I miss something? Sorry, let me go back through this again. Sign up. Accept terms. Next. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why they didn't send an email verification. I'll just listen real quick. If you guys just give me a second here.
While Jody's filling in, I just am going to reiterate the importance of using your legal name as it's registered with the IRS because matching happens all throughout the system. So when you're with the Secretary of State, they match it to the IRS, and then the state matches it to the Secretary of State. And then when you're in the next session we have on reimbursements, you'll find that if that same legal name is not exactly on your invoice, keystroke for keystroke, then your reimbursement may not go through because the invoice needs to match the name on the invoice needs to match that legal name. So include your LLC and all of that on all of your documents, whatever it says on your filing.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, that's really important. I've ran into some issues before with that, so I'm glad that you brought that up.
I just want to confirm on this first page here, there's no request for business identification. This is personal legal name that they're looking for, correct?
Oh, this page, the sign up page right now. Yeah, it's
Yes.
just your name. They'll come later in the sign up process, they'll ask your business name.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna check my email and I'm gonna grab my code. Okay, so I'm gonna continue and I'm gonna paste code there, agree, and sign up. So the next thing that's gonna happen is they're gonna check to see the if you already have a vendor code. So you just continue. They're going to send us another verification code. So just next, I'll go back into my email. Hasn't popped up yet. It's a little slow. There we go. I'm always wanting things to like pop up immediately, like, like where's it at? Sometimes it's quicker than others. Okay, verify that. Okay, so now we're going to get to search for an existing account. I'm going to search for a company. And here's where your taxpayer identification number comes in. And I have a dummy number here that I'm going to put in. Okay. And I'm going to just say my legal business name is RFSI test. Okay, so they're going to do a search. And there's no records found because this hasn't been registered as a business with the state. So we're going to go scroll down a little bit. They'll have some questions here you may want to read over. So just asking you if you've already been registered and if you want to continue, or no, register now, which is what we're going to do. Okay. So here's where we'll start putting in our business information. Organization type is a company. the 1099 classification, I'm just going to choose LLC. Taxpayer ID number type. So this is what type you have. So I put in something that looked like an EIN. If you have a social security number, that's what you would choose there. It'll ask if you're a healthcare provider, and I'm not. And here you'll put your number in again, your tax identification number. Okay. Company name. Okay. This is where you can add a doing business as name or a DBA. Okay. Here, you just choose what, if you want your legal name on the check or your DBA or both. I'm just going to do my legal name. That's fine. Tax. This is where you put in your address, and this is the one you want to make sure is registered with the IRS. So. Okay. Just like that. Okay. And you'll want to continue. Okay, so it'll self-populate. This is your primary address. Fill out anything else you'd like to add. And then here's where you're going to choose what this address represents in our accounting system. So ordering, payment, billing. I'm just going to keep it for all that. What you feel best about that. It's going to fill some of the information that you added in the first screen for primary contact. If you want to change that, feel free. I always think it's good to have the business owner as the primary contact. And then it asks about the above contact for below address. So like if they needed to contact you about payment, this is the person that the accounting is going to contact. Okay. Any questions so far? Good. Okay. It's a pretty straightforward process. Okay. I just use the TIN number to verify my locations. Let's see what organization information. So nothing is asterisk here. You can fill out whatever you'd like here about your organization. And then here's some extra like pull downs that you can look at. So if you want to register a commodity, you can look at our commodity codes. It's not necessary for setting up your vendor code with the state, but they have different commodities. I think they use this for solicitations. You can just choose one of those and it'll fill business type. If you want to add designations, organization, and attachments, if you want to add anything and additional information. So you will continue, and here is the page where you're just going to make sure everything is correct. If you see something that's not quite right, just hit the edit button. It'll allow you to edit it. And once you show that, you are able to register. So you would choose submit registration. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to register the dummy information that I've put in. But once you hit that button, the system will process and they will give you your vendor code or a VSS number right away. And once you have that number, save it and make sure you send it over to me so that I can put it in my records, and we'll use that once we have your grant contracts in place. So I'm going to cancel this registration. Is there any questions on this before I close the window down? Okay, great. And I'm going to say yes, I do. Let's see. there you go, and it was me back there. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to go back to my slides really quick. Okay. All right, so it's a very straightforward process. Of course, if you run into any problems, you can use the tools that help, or you can just contact me. So after that, just to start getting you set up in the system, we will need a few more documents from you. We'll need a certificate of insurance, which Brian's going to go over when he talks about the contract. And I will send you a form for an EFT so that you can have your reimbursements directly deposited into your account. And that's the end of what I have for you. And I think Brian's going to take over now.
Great. Thank you very much, Jody. And as people have questions, feel free to just interrupt me and ask. Would there also be some time at the end? Okay, next slide, please, Jody. Great. So first thing is just the parts of your contract, what to look for. Each contract will have a cover page. There will be a statement of work, which are really the program specific items, things related specifically to your project. And then, of course, there are always the terms and conditions. In this case, you get two of them. One is the state general terms and conditions, and the other one is the federal terms and conditions. And I have read through each thoroughly. The federal terms and conditions, if there is a dispute, those will take precedent before the state terms and conditions. So it is helpful to read through them. A little disclaimer, I am not an attorney, and if you have any kind of legal questions on these documents, you should probably consult an attorney. What I'd like to do in this is just cover the elements that we have found people benefit from the most in understanding upfront and often have the most material impact outside of legal implications. And then, of course, there are other exhibits. Next slide, Jody. Thank you. There are two contract types. There is a POGG1, which stands for Purchase Order Grants Given. Those of you who have a farm to market grant with us are familiar with the POGG1. Those are for awards that are $250,000 or less. And then there is the CTGG1, which is contract grants given, and those are for more than $250,000. So depending on your award, you will get one of these two types of contracts. The POGG1 will have the statement of work as an exhibit, as will the contract. The primary difference is that for the POGG1, the state terms and conditions are governed by the document Small Dollar Award Grants Terms and Conditions. And those will be included as an exhibit in your contract. For a contract, a CTGG1, the state T's terms and conditions are actually in the body of the contract. And then federal terms and conditions in both are going to be included as an exhibit. Next slide, please. So the key elements of the cover page that you'll be interested in is one, your agreement number, and you'll be referencing that on many documents going forward. The maximum amount of your agreement, which is not to be exceeded, so the state will not reimburse for anything over the maximum amount of your agreement. The effective date, that is essentially the date that the agreement becomes valid and enforceable. Then there is an initial agreement expiration date, which is the end date of the agreement. And then there is a fund expenditure expiration date, the date by which funds must be expected. And Monty had asked some questions. I know timing is an issue for so many of you. for good reason. He had asked a question about extended timelines. The USDA will not be offering extensions on this project. We are actually looking to see how quickly we can get things done or money spent because it just is a more secure, the faster we can spend money, the more secure the project is. We have no indication that it's going to be shut down, but it's just a very dynamic environment right now in the federal government. So the thing that really is going to matter is being able to spend funds before the expiration date. And that can happen. We can be creative about how that happens as long as the funds are spent on allowable costs. So when we do our reimbursement session, I'll talk a little bit more about that. And we can work with you individually as well to see how we can make sure that you are able to take advantage of all those funds in this limited time period that we have. Next slide, Jody. This is an example of what a cover page will look like. It may be formatted differently on your contract, but the information will be the same. So you've got our name, the grantee, that's your full legal name. Again, that legal name comes in, your unique entity identifier, and then the agreement maximum amount might be split into fiscal year terms. We're going to work with procurement to see exactly how they want to use that. But the total amount will be on there for what you can spend. You'll see that at the bottom, total for all state fiscal years. Your performance beginning date, the initial agreement expiration date, the fund expiration end date will all be on that cover page. Those are the critical pieces of information. You don't need to worry about agreement authority. That's an internal. It describes to the central contracts unit at the state why we have the authority to encumber these funds on your behalf. Next slide, Jody. Thank you. This becomes really critical. Your statement of work for this project ties directly back to the list of objectives that you put under provide a list of objectives your project hopes to achieve. And there was a little bit of wrangling on some of the projects because typically we think of objectives as outcome based. And in this case, the USDA was really looking for language that was more task based, like we are going to install a stone mill. That was an objective. And in that way, it's more project management language than it is outcome based. So in the example here, we have a reference to the objective number, which in this case is objective number 1, which was to install a stone mill. And the first activity that we're going to say is a key benchmark. It's placing the order for the stone mill, put an estimated completion date, and then a deliverable, meaning is there something that comes from it as evidence that this has happened. And the completion dates are not, these are not part of your performance criteria. So there's nothing in the terms and conditions that says if you don't have this activity done by this completion date, you will be in trouble. This is really just more project management information for us to know that the project is on track, that it's happening as it should, and that the activities that you have determined are necessary for completion of the project are being done. Next slide, please. And then the budget table becomes our second really, really important part of the statement of work. The budget table should be tied directly to the items that you have included in your application. And it says here, reference the budget subtables. So not the overall table, the summary table. It says equipment and has a total amount. but in the equipment table, you broke it down. Include those items there that you have there in this budget table. And that becomes really important for the reason that I'm going to show you on the next slide. Key language on reimbursements only with prior written approval. The state shall reimburse grantees allowable costs. The statement of work serves as the prior written approval. That is why that becomes so important. Your budget table on the statement of work is part of your contract, and if it is not on your statement of work, if an item is not on your statement of work, within reason, I mean, paper towels don't have to be on your statement of work, but that should be under supplies in some category. If it's not on the statement of work, we cannot reimburse you, which is not the situation we want to find ourselves in. So if you have a situation where you need to swap out a piece of equipment, let us know and we can approve that via email. It may or may not require a modification to your statement of work. If it does, we have to get USDA approval to make that happen. I don't think there'll be a lot of pushback on that as long as that different piece of equipment actually serves the project in the same manner. And on this point, the way that you describe what you're buying on the statement of work can be helpful in terms of allowing a little bit of flexibility within that item category. So for instance, I put stone mill on the statement of work rather than Acme Model 3200 stone mill, because maybe Acme Model 3200 is not available and I'm going to go with Coyote Enterprises 3200 stone mill. It's a stone mill and I've described it as such. And that's a good level of description versus something like uh, things to mill grain. That would not be a good statement of work description because it's too vague. So there's a little bit of balance here. However, if you know exactly what you want to buy, go ahead and put it in there. But if you're not quite clear on which model, which manufacturer, that kind of thing, leave it a little bit general. If, however, you decide we don't really need a stone mill, we really need a salad spinner, that is going to require a pre-approval before purchase to make sure it's on your statement of work. Also importantly, anything spent after the fund expenditure end date cannot be reimbursed. And the state will only reimburse allowable, reasonable, and actual costs. So that just means that if a stone mill is typically $15,000 and you're paying $150,000, that may not be reimbursable because that would be considered unreasonable. And allowable goes back to your statement of work, described in this agreement and shown in the budget. That's language from the terms and conditions. You will submit invoices to us for reimbursement. That is why you are being registered as a vendor through the vendor self-service, because the state really can only pay vendors. It has no means of paying other kinds of entities. So you're registering as a vendor, and vendors are required to provide invoices. Jody will cover what's required in an invoice in the next session. And then the state does have 45 days legally to pay the invoice after approval. And that is why it's not only mandatory, but it is highly encouraged that you attend the reimbursement process session. We are hoping to get you reimbursed within 2 to 3 weeks. And what typically happens is when reimbursements take a long time, it's because we are having trouble getting appropriate documentation that will be approved by accounting. So it's, I think, relatively simple to provide that if you know in advance what that's going to look like. So we're intending to shrink this 45 days down with your help. Jody? Thank you. Other key language. This is the first slide on insurance, workers' compensation. If you have employees and your subcontractors have employees, they need to be covered with workers' compensation. General liability, $1 million each occurrence, $1 million general aggregate, $100 million in products and completed operations, and $50,000 of any one fire. And I have had people ask me, why do we need general liability? The insurance requirements, including automotive, which I'll cover in a moment, are here because the state doesn't want to become party to, let's say, somebody from Home Depot is delivering lumber and they step on something on the property and twist their ankle, and now you have a lawsuit. The state wants to make sure the insurance is going to cover any claims that are made, and the state is not going to be required to cover those claims because in a lawsuit, is it the plaintiff who would basically say, well, this was a state project and they didn't control the environment, that kind of thing. Second slide, please, Jody. Automotive liability, covering any auto with a minimum limit of $1 million. It is not typical that somebody says we don't have any cars, although it does happen. If there is a vehicle used during the project or in service to the project, it needs to be insured for the reason that I just described earlier. So if you send an employee down to Home Depot to pick up materials, that vehicle needs to be insured because it's being used in service to the project. The state needs to be named as additional insured. That will be where we'll send out links. I think Jody just indicated that. And then the state needs to get certificates of insurance, COIs, for that coverage. And all of this material, we're happy to send you the language needed, which will be in the agreement so that you can work through that with your insurance agent if you don't have it already. Next slide, please, Jody. Thank you. Other state terms, there will be reporting, semi-annual, then a final report. Records, keep them for 3 years. The federal government does have the right to audit any project within that 3-year period, so those records need to be kept. Confidential information. If it's public information, it's not confidential. If it's your information, it is not treated as confidential by the state, except where we have PII, which is personally identifiable information. That we do not share except under confidential agreements. So, for instance, we won't be providing your names, addresses, UEI numbers, social security numbers, and all that to anybody else without a confidentiality agreement and without a good reason. If you're not sure if you should share it, then just check in with us. But typically, confidential information will be noted as confidential. Next slide, Jody. That is the basic structure of the contract and the items to look for. And I do also have some links here. I'm hoping that I can just drop these into the chat without problem, without trouble. So while I do that, I'm happy to, let's see, is this call being recorded? Okay, so that's great. So here's a link to the CTGG1 template. And here is a link to the small dollar grant award terms and conditions. The CTGG1 template will have the state terms and conditions in the body of it, as well as the federal, I think, are already attached as an exhibit for that CTGG1. And if you, let's see, we can also send a link out. I'd forgotten to get a link for those federal guidelines for the POGG1, so we can send that link out as well. And thank you for enduring that stimulating discussion on contract anatomy and components. Are there any specific questions I can help answer?
Just to
Beth?
clear, just to clarify, you'll be sending out, or I guess we'll have access to this recording of today's meeting so that we can have those details for the insurance, those insurance requirements, specifically the actual, like exactly how we need to have that additional insured listed.
Yes, and Beth, if you go to the CTGG1 or the small dollar grants and conditions,
It's spelled out in there as well.
it'll have the exact language in there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Matt and Rita, I saw you both came off. Why don't we start with Matt? No.
That wasn't intentional.
Oh, okay. Got it. Got it. Uh, Rita, did you have a question?
No, you had answered it. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
So Brian, this is Beth. I have a question. So one of the, and I just started to read through it from indemnification. I know that as a fellow state agency, we always have to strike out some things in the indemnification agreement because we're both state agencies.
Yes.
Did you make allowances for that in this latest terms and conditions?
No, and I think there's some language in there from the contracts unit office. So I will check that language, Beth, and get back to you with what they're recommending on that. They do acknowledge that as a situation.
Right. I'll forward it to our grants folks or contract
Okay.
person to look over.
Okay.
I have a second question related to the scope of work. And when we're doing a big project like this and we have a contractor, the information that we get from them is going to be mixing your money versus our money versus
Yeah.
other grant funding all together. Is there some latitude when I turn it in and say, I need $10,000 for, whatever I put in the scope of work? Because I tried to break it out to the different things because it's all going to happen at once.
Right.
So
So
I think that's going to be our hardest part is getting you the receipts and the information that you call allowable when they're doing all of the stuff at once.
yes. Okay, so the first thing is the amount. So if you replicate the amounts that you have in your application, that'll be the easiest. We understand that prices change,
Yeah.
and so you can move amounts between categories. You can't, I believe you can move amounts between categories without prior authorization, and I will check on that. You cannot move amounts to new line items without prior authorization. That would have to be authorized. Now, in terms of the reimbursements, when you're submitting for those, what you would do, so what accounting needs is just, and Jody will cover this, but they need clear evidence that you are getting reimbursed for something that actually happened. Because some bad individual may decide to submit bogus invoices and or bogus payments, but it's difficult to do both. So if you have that valid legal invoice from your provider, your supplier, and even if the amount say is much larger because you're paying with other funds, the will just reimburse you what you're requesting
Okay.
on that. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll leave it there for now, and I think in the reimbursement component, we'll provide more information on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And our intention is to make it as easy as possible while meeting the accounting needs. So that we understand the spirit of the thing. We just need enough of the letter of the thing to be able to get it cleared.
Brian, I'm sorry. Brian, there was a question in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to read it to you?
I got it here.
Okay, it's from
Uh,
Maddie.
okay. Do you anticipate the recent executive order from grant making? Well, yeah, anything right now coming out of the federal government is a little stressful as it relates to the certainty of what's happening. But no, we are unaware that that will have any impact on this particular project. And what's may be helpful to know, it's at least what the AMS has reiterated with us, is that the federal terms and conditions that we are beholden to are from the year in which the agreement with the state was signed, and that was 2023. So that is the legal language that will govern what happens here with this particular program. And there's no indication that that's going to change.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and we'll certainly let everybody know as soon as possible if something happens. But Maddie, that's a really good point. I just want to reiterate that that's why there's some potentially unfair feeling of urgency with getting these projects, getting money spent, is just to make sure everybody can get reimbursed and get everything that they need before something else comes down the pipeline. Chris, did you have a question? I saw you came off for a moment.
Yeah, I did have a question in regards to the budget section on the statement of work, and if that is going to be, just if you could specify kind of how that process is going to unfold, if the state will be drafting the statements of work based on the initially outlined purchases on the RFSI applications, um, or if you'll be looking for adjustments from us prior to that drafting. On our application, I was fairly specific with manufacturers, and making some things a little bit more generalized would be very helpful.
Yeah.
So, wondering how that process is going to unfold.
What we'll do is ask each of you to fill out your budget tables and your activity tables. And you can certainly at that point in time generalize some of those descriptions, Chris. And then where there are any questions, we'll work together. But that'll be a much more expedient process than Jody and I attempting to populate them. And if you do have at that point in time any budget items where you already know that, wait, this has to change because something has already happened that is influencing this, let us know and we will work with the AMS to see what we need to do in order to make those changes as expedient as we can.
Okay. Is it possible to get the templates sent to us for those tables so that we could begin to work on those concurrent to the rest of the process moving forward on your end?
That is our intention. Jody, I think we're pretty close on those statements of work. Do we need to get those approved by procurement?
Yeah, I think that's where we're at right now.
Okay, all right. So, it's Wednesday already, but let's target next week for getting those templates out to everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, well, let me just finish up my final note here. This is the best audience we've had on one of these webinars. Congratulations. Oh, in sincerity, thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate you're taking your time to do this, and hopefully this will be helpful in getting through the contracting process and making sure that you are fully aware of your obligations, our obligations, and so we can work together as efficiently as possible going forward. As Jody indicated, we will send out a link, correct, Jody? Yep.
Yes, it does have to be processed through our communications department, so it may be a few days, but I'll get them to you as soon as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you. And feel free to reach out if a question comes up in the meantime, or you want to just have a discussion about your project and where we are. Great. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.